52 days after Nancy Guthrie vanished, her children finally broke their silence. Joined by a son-in-law, they issued their first public words in 7 long weeks, and their statement confirmed what everyone feared but wouldn't say. They no longer expect their mother to be found alive. It began, "We want to celebrate her beautiful and courageous life, but we cannot do that until she is brought to a final place of rest. Not returned, not found, but put to rest." After 52 days, Nancy's family is asking for her body. I reread that 4 times, and not for the sorrow. You could see that coming. I read it again for what was hidden beneath the words. A single date. A date never before mentioned publicly. January 11th, 21 days before Nancy disappeared. That detail didn't come from her children, Savannah, Annie, or Cameron. According to Sheriff Nanos, that date originated with Google. Doorbell footage they recovered showed a suspect, unarmed and without a backpack, on what appeared to be January 11th. Then, Google walked it back, stating they couldn't confirm the timestamp. The sheriff considers it inconclusive, but the FBI isn't. They canvassed for footage from that night and told the family to include it. Pull up a calendar, and it becomes clear. January 11th was a Sunday. Another date of interest, January 24th, a Saturday. The night Nancy was taken, February 1st, another Sunday. 3 dates, 3 consecutive weekends. This tells you the man has a regular job. He's accounted for Monday through Friday. His only window of opportunity is Saturday and Sunday nights. And that fact alone narrows the search far more than anything the FBI has officially released. Then there's the other mystery no one can solve. Nancy Guthrie's Facebook Messenger was compromised twice. She posted publicly about it. Did her abductor gain access to her accounts beforehand? Did he mine her private messages for her schedule, learning exactly when she'd be alone? Or is it merely another bizarre coincidence in a case that seems to be full of them? The hack is worth examining. Most have written it off as noise, but it might be the key. Think about what Messenger would contain for an 84-year-old Tucson woman who lived by herself. It's where she made plans with her daughters and confirmed her Uber rides home. Pickups, church schedules, travel dates. It was all there for anyone to see. She shared photos of her grandchildren and her latest baking creations. The kind of everyday chatter that paints a detailed picture of her routine. She's home Tuesdays, at Annie's on Fridays. She Ubers home late. After 10 p.m., she's by herself. Physical surveillance reveals the property's layout, the camera locations, the doors she uses, and when the lights go out. Digital surveillance reveals the schedule, when the house is empty, when she is isolated, and when her world goes silent. The man who took Nancy had access to both. The weekend trips gave him the terrain, the hack gave him the timetable. And the reconnaissance wasn't just online. On the morning of January 31st, her last day of a normal life, someone was already watching. At about 10 that morning, a vehicle was noticed on Via Entrada. The FBI has since been pulling all camera data from that street between 10 and 11:30 a.m. They are hunting for that car, trying to connect it to the man seen on prior weekends. Nancy was home all morning. 12 hours before she was abducted, someone was parked near her house in plain sight. Not at 2 in the morning, when a lone vehicle raises alarms on deserted streets. But at 10 a.m., hidden in plain sight among the landscaping trucks and delivery vans, a time when a parked car on a neighborhood street is the most normal thing you could see. A time of day when a man in a car looks like he's waiting for a crew, waiting for a client or a gate code, not waiting for night to fall. This type of daytime recon points to a very specific kind of person. Someone with a valid reason to be in the Catalina Foothills during the workday. Someone whose presence on that street at 10 a.m. wouldn't cause a single neighbor to look twice. Someone who blended into the neighborhood's daily life so perfectly, he was effectively invisible. A builder, a landscaper, a pool tech, a contractor. Near NY's property, a new house was going up. The Bureau is on it. Agents grilled the homeowner, demanding names of every worker on site before February 1st. News Nation confirmed this move. This was not a casual inquiry. They are compiling a full list of every individual with a professional reason to be there in January. Forensic expert Joseph Scott Morgan, with over 10,000 death investigations, explained the construction theory simply. Workers on an open frame possess a unique vantage point nobody else has. They're elevated, stationary for hours, and can see directly into private yards, driveways, and homes from blind spots no home security camera is aimed at. Cameras point out and down. They cover gates, doors, the first 10 feet of a driveway. They don't see the sky. A man on a second-story frame, 3 houses down, is invisible to the neighborhood surveillance grid. Consider the geometry. A worker there would have seen NY's car come and go. He'd have known which doors she used, the pool cleaner's schedule, and the landscaper's day. He would absorb the street's rhythm, the way you learn any environment you occupy for 40 hours a week. You don't have to try. You don't need to write anything down. The knowledge just seeps in. Which house has a camera? Which driveway is clear by 8? Which woman comes home alone and enters through the garage? Now connect that pattern to the weekend. Monday to Friday, he is on the clock, earning a check, and building a mental map of the neighborhood. It's a passive, effortless process for any worker absorbing their operational environment. Then the weekend arrives. The site goes dark, the crew is gone, and no one is counting heads. He returns, but not in a work truck, not in a vehicle with a company logo. He comes in his own car, at night, walking to a porch he studied from above for weeks. January 11th, January 24th, January 31st. The job gives him the view. The weekend gives him the cover. This theory has a direct historical precedent the FBI knows well. In 2006, Jennifer Kessie vanished in Orlando, Florida. A security camera caught a figure walking from her car, but the image was a useless, grainy blur. One of the central investigative theories involved local construction workers. An active building site was adjacent to her complex, giving workers a direct line of sight to her daily life. Some of those crew members were paid under the table. Some were undocumented, and others had already left for other jobs by the time police came asking. The construction angle in the Kessie case went cold. The workforce was too transient and unlisted to properly vet. That is the exact investigative nightmare the FBI faces right now in the Catalina Foothills. And there's already proof that the canvassing has been flawed. A man who works as a gardener in that same neighborhood went to a reporter in mid-March. More than 6 weeks after the abduction, he claimed nobody had spoken to him, not one detective or federal agent. He works on NY's street. He knows the routines, the residents. He recognized Nancy by sight. He said the last time he saw her in person was somewhere between 8 months and a year before she went missing. Just a brief hello one morning, and that was it. I am not pointing to this gardener as a suspect. I am not implying any involvement. He came forward on his own to help because nobody had bothered to ask him. His story proves one thing. 6 weeks in, with a 24-person task force, the net hasn't reached everyone with regular access. If a man working on her kidnapping street was never contacted, the investigation has holes. And in the Catalina Foothills, those holes are more dangerous than in most neighborhoods. Because this is not a place where the residents themselves are the ones typically outside. Residents are at home, or they travel. They hire people. The ones physically present on those streets daily are the hired hands, moving through yards, walking along fences, getting on roofs, and unloading equipment from their trucks. The exterminator, the window washer, the courier, the security installer. The general contractor, his crew, and their off-the-books day laborers. In a neighborhood of multi-million-dollar homes, they are a constant, rotating cast of invisible eyes. They arrive, do their job, and disappear. They're part of the landscape, completely ignored. They are meant to be there. In the world of criminology, this has a name: ambient surveillance. The passive, unintentional, yet total knowledge someone gains just from being in a space, again and again. A landscaper on the same street for 6 months learns every camera's blind spot. He knows which driveway is empty by 8 a.m. and which expensive car never leaves the garage. While trimming hedges, he overhears every argument that drifts through an open window. He knows the bedroom light that goes out earlier than it should. None of this is intentional snooping. It's the unavoidable result of a human being occupying the same territory week after week. The data just accumulates. And in this case, the attacker knew her schedule, her home's layout, and the precise angle of every single camera guarding her property. The question of who else held that same unconscious knowledge isn't secondary. It's everything. It's the one question that might finally break this case. And now, the FBI is collecting contractor names. But that official list only scratches the surface: the licensed companies, the insured crews, the documented workers. In a place like Tucson, right on the border, there is a massive shadow economy. A huge part of the workforce operates entirely outside the system, like the day laborers who gather before dawn. These are workers who drift between crews, men paid in cash with no fixed employer. They don't carry business cards, and for very good reasons. They have no intention of walking into an FBI office to talk about a crime they didn't commit. These men are witnesses. Some of them saw a car that didn't belong, or a face that was out of place. They saw something in January that seemed like nothing, but would look like everything right now. That information is sitting dormant in someone's mind, because no one has thought to ask. Which brings us to the cameras, and a detail that ties the construction theory, the problem of ambient knowledge, and the signal jamming all into one clean line. And it's this detail that should worry you the most. The FBI recovered stills from the cameras on her property pool, backyard, side yard. ABC News reported it first. CBS News confirmed the report. These low-resolution thumbnails go back weeks before February 1st, motion-triggered snapshots of who came and went. They show the pool guy, landscapers, family members, the normal rhythm of life throughout January. Sources close to the case say nothing in those images raised red flags. The man from the doorbell video, the ski mask, the Ozark Trail backpack, is completely absent from those pictures. He never once crossed through the pool area, the backyard, or the side yard in all the weeks of footage. He either stayed completely clear of those angles, or he was watching from somewhere the cameras couldn't reach. Somewhere like the elevated frame of that new house being built 3 doors down. But here is what those sources found deeply disturbing. Those very same cameras, the ones that had worked flawlessly for weeks, that had captured every routine visit without fail, recording and storing images exactly as they should, captured absolutely zero on the night Nancy was taken. Not one motion event, not a single image. They worked before February 1st. They worked after. But on the one night that mattered, every wireless camera she owned went completely dark. We have talked about the signal disruption theory before in this series. That night, February 1st, multiple neighbors suddenly lost their internet. One neighbor's Ring cameras died, but only on the side of his house that faced Nancy's property. The cameras on the other side, on the same router and network, never went down. That wasn't a neighborhood outage. That was a targeted, directional attack. And the fact that Nancy's own cameras went silent confirms the attack reached past her fence and into her home. The property had cameras everywhere, but that night they were all blind. Only the Nest doorbell saw anything, and it recorded its own murder at 1:47 a.m., just before the intruder disabled it. He never even had to touch the other wireless cameras. They were already jammed before he set foot on the property, meaning the attacker had done his homework. This wasn't just about the doorbell he smothered with a plant. It was the pool camera, the side yard, the backyard. He knew about every last one. He knew they were wireless, and he knew the exact frequency to block them. He brought a device that could create a digital blackout, leaving no footprints and no forensic trail. That kind of intel, mixing technical skill with specific knowledge of the property, doesn't come from a quick internet search. You don't get that from a single drive-by or a screenshot from Google Earth. You get it by being there, by watching, by spending enough time nearby to build a complete blueprint of the entire security layout. FBI thumbnails proved it. Workers had been all over NY's property in the weeks before she vanished. Landscapers in the yard, technicians by the pool. These individuals saw the cameras up close. They worked right beside them. The issue isn't whether someone in that orbit could have gathered the intel. It's whether investigators have actually tracked down and questioned every single person who had that opportunity. And according to the Gardener, they haven't. Amidst this, Sheriff Nanos did a local radio interview that was far more telling than any national appearance. The show was informal, with local hosts. In that relaxed setting, the sheriff let things slip he'd never said on camera. When asked if he'd do anything differently, he said, "No, nothing different." He expressed regret for the outcome, but insisted he stood by every single decision his department made. That was a complete reversal. He had previously admitted to the Associated Press that the crime scene was likely released too soon. But that admission was now gone, replaced by a new narrative. No mistakes were made. Asked about his involvement, he claimed he wasn't the investigator, saying those days were long behind him. He stated his role was to shield the team and manage from a distance. But when a case draws this much heat, national media, Congress, $1 million reward, and a federal task force, leaders are supposed to say, "The buck stops here." The sheriff's response was, "I am not the investigator." That's a critical distinction, given the questionable calls. Releasing the scene early, sending DNA to Florida instead of Quantico. The 2-mile search perimeter instead of 5, letting the pool cleaner onto an active scene. The pacemaker data leaked to the media. The conflicting stories about the doorbell photos given to 4 different news networks. These all happened under his command. Then, unprompted, he compared this case to the disappearance of Isabel Celis. She was a 6-year-old girl taken from her home in 2012, her body found years later in the desert. He used it as an example of how long these cases can take to solve. He also highlighted how the father in that case was a public suspect for years before being cleared, a pointed jab at the scrutiny Tommaso Cioni was facing. He was forced to address his own disciplinary record from El Paso, which the Arizona Republic had uncovered. The forced resignation in 1982, the 37 days of suspensions, kicking a handcuffed suspect in the head, the fabricated resume. He admitted he couldn't argue with any of it. His excuse was simple. "I was young, I was a kid." Asked if he was a rogue cop, he answered with a definitive absolutely not. There is now an official recall effort to oust him from office. Its political success is one thing, the investigative issue is another. The real question is whether a sheriff who insists no mistakes were made, a man who distances himself by saying he's not the investigator, a man who calls January 11th inconclusive, while the FBI is telling the family to confirm that very date publicly, has cost this case time it could never get back. All while he himself said Nancy could die within 24 hours without her medicine. Now, at 50 days, the family isn't asking for her return. They're asking for her body. The Joint Task Force is running, with 20 to 24 people from the Sheriff's Office and the FBI. DNA is undergoing forensic genetic genealogy, the same technique that unmasked the Golden State Killer and linked Brian Kohberger to the Idaho murders. Behind closed doors, this case is anything but cold, says a former FBI agent. She claims the Bureau is swimming in more leads than most cases ever see. Another former agent believes the ransom angle seems increasingly unlikely. The planning was too intricate, the risk too high. A retired agent says the reward is untouched because only the guilty know what happened. That is not a theory. It is the assessment from a veteran kidnapping investigator. This means the circle of knowledge is small, and everyone inside is bound by complicity. The family insists the answer lies in southern Arizona, a geographic focus shaped by the FBI. They are signaling that the suspect is local, maybe from the very neighborhood she called home for 50 years. He's a man who works weekdays and stalked his prey on 3 consecutive weekends. He possessed enough physical knowledge to disable every wireless camera without a trace. He broke into her private messages, learning her exact schedule and her plans. And a vehicle was seen near her home at 10 in the morning on the day she vanished. A nearby construction project provided a perfect, elevated vantage point over her yard. 6 weeks in, not every worker has been interviewed. The profile is getting tighter. The 3 weekends reveal his rigid schedule. The construction site was likely his observation post. A missed gardener shows gaps in the canvas. Dead cameras point to technology. The hack proves his digital access. The public plea from Savannah Guthrie, Annie Guthrie, Tommaso Cioni, and Cameron Guthrie confirms the FBI believes the truth is hidden in Tucson. The sheriff admits Google flagged a photo from January 11th, but then couldn't confirm it. The FBI pursued the lead anyway. While the sheriff deems it inconclusive, the family just pleads, "Search your memories." But the suspect's own actions tell us he's a man who works Monday through Friday and hunts on the weekends. 50 days and no arrest, but the net is closing. Somewhere in Tucson, he went to work this morning. He took a seat at a desk, climbed a scaffold, or turned an ignition key. He exchanged greetings with coworkers who have no idea what he has done. He scans his phone for news, knowing more than any reporter, counting down the days until a lab result or a witness closes the gap to his cell. That gap is shrinking. If you were employed in the Catalina Foothills this past January or early February, if you were on a crew, in a truck on those roads, and noticed something seemingly innocent, it could have been a vehicle parked oddly, or a person watching from a cab for too long, a weekday face appearing on a weekend. Those small details are now critical. Someone in Tucson holds the key. The FBI is sure of it. The family is sure of it. Those 3 weekends prove the perpetrator was hiding in plain sight in that neighborhood, on those streets. He was embedded in the community long before he came back for the final time. Subscribe to this channel, activate your alerts, and share your thoughts on what his weekend routine reveals. The next video in this series pulls on the very thread we've just uncovered. The heart-wrenching disappearance of Nancy Guthrie is no longer just a search for a missing person. It has become a solemn quest for a final place of rest. After 52 days of agonizing silence, her family's transition from hoping for a rescue to pleading for her body serves as a staggering wake-up call to us all. This case reveals a chilling modern reality. The predators of today do not just lurk in the shadows, they hide in the digital trails of our everyday lives. The alleged compromise of Nancy's private messages warns us that our digital footprints are blueprints for those who mean us harm. A simple Facebook post or a confirmed Uber ride can inadvertently broadcast our vulnerabilities to a calculating observer. We must learn that vigilance is a communal duty. The ambient surveillance of a neighborhood, the gardener who recognizes a face, or the worker on a construction frame, reminds us that we are each other's keepers. Let Nancy's story inspire a deeper commitment to protecting our elders from both physical and digital invisible eyes. True security isn't just a doorbell camera, it's the strength of a community that refuses to look away.